focus on what you do best, where your passion is, right? What wakes you up every day and you're like, hell yeah, I love this. Do that. Stay on that, because your passion, your love, your dedication is going to ultimately help you make it through the challenging times to be successful, right? That's cannabis. We're all here for a reason. We love the plant, right?
Welcome to How to Flourish in Cannabis. I'm your host, Brian Weber. Our topic today, what can the history of wholesale cannabis tell us about the future? How to Flourish in Cannabis is an educational focused show with experienced leaders in regulated cannabis. Our guests have a wide range of experience in law, insurance, real estate, and today we have a wonderful guest who's a specialist in wholesale cannabis. There's no pitches here. This is designed to be a masterclass in regulated cannabis. How to Flourish in Cannabis is our effort to elevate and educate. Today, I'm pleased to have co-founder and CEO of Apex Trading, John Manlove, on. We're going to go a deep dive in wholesale cannabis, the history of wholesale cannabis, and hopefully what that can tell us about the future of cannabis in today's call. John, thanks for coming today.
Brian, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Love to have you here. We've gotten to know each other quite quickly over the past 6 months or so, and I've just an immense of knowledge from you about wholesale cannabis in general and the marketplace and how we can help. And just a disclaimer, Apex Trading and Flourish are partners on this one, but this is a 100% educational show on this one. John, how did you end up starting in Apex Trading?
Yeah, it's a great question. Brian, I think my journey with Apex began, I was about 16 years old when I was introduced to the plant, like many in high school, and fell in love with it. Obviously went on to college, and then I had the opportunity in 2014 to enter the cannabis industry with one of the first online wholesale marketplaces ever. That one unfortunately didn't work out. And in 2018, I started Apex with my co-founders to really focus on facilitating and streamlining the wholesale transaction process from, cultivation all the way down to in retail, and provide those producers the tools that they need to really flourish in cannabis, for instance.
I like it. Thanks for rolling with the pun on that one. So just a quick reminder, and today's topic is, what can the history of wholesale cannabis tell us about the future? Because, one thing about cannabis that's unique to, businesses in the United States is our markets are state by state. There are 50 individual countries that operate cannabis in very different ways, going from full legal, medical, recreational, decriminalize the whole nine, all the way to, you're going to go to jail for a long time. So, and all those markets operate differently across the states in all the different times. So I'm not the expert, so I'm going to let John have the floor on this one. Can you just give a little audience a little bit of background on that, and we'll go a little deeper on this?
Yeah, I think today it keeps changing. We have over 30 adult use markets in the U.S., some limited medical, which seem well on their way to becoming adult use, such as Florida, as you see, Donald Trump's endorsement there, which is probably going to do wonders to move that initiative forward there. But yeah, like you said, every state has their own ability to regulate cannabis, right? Whether they want it fully, not to, keep it prohibition, right? Or to have limited access or full access. I think what we really look at from a state perspective, especially if you're a producer or retailer, is what's the structure of the licenses, right? Is there a cap on licenses? Is it an open license market, right? Is there certain regulatory hurdles that we have to overcome with packaging and costs and testing, right? There's a lot to think about when you're looking at what market to enter, right? As well as how healthy is the market? Is it already saturated? Do we want to get in early? And now we have this new emergence of hemp, right? And so is there intoxicating hemp allowed in this state? Am I competing with an open market plus this other market now, right? And that becomes very dynamic. And so it really is one that, from a state-by-state basis, there's some similarities, right? Across most adult use, they have a seed-to-sale system like Metric. They have license, they have certain regulatory protocols, testing and things they have to do. But within those, there are very dynamic and very nuanced things that you have to really understand to decide, is this a state I want to be in, or is this a state I should remain being in, right, at the end of the day as well?
So that's really good to know. And that's a framework when you're choosing to start your business, where what state and what time makes a huge difference. So let's look at emerging market states now. And we're obviously recording this in the fall of 2024, pre-election. So what would you consider emerging markets right now for cannabis? And there's some granularity there, of course.
Yeah. We tend to think of an emerging market as a market that is transitioned from traditionally medical to recreational, right? Or they've passed that form of adult use, right? Where they're starting to open up licenses. And normally what we think of an emerging market is once they go adult use, it's about 24 to 36 months where it kind of stays in this emerging market kind of, group. And then you start to see scale and you start to see MSOs come in, you start to see consolidation, right? Kind of after that year 3 mark. And so when you think about an emerging market like New Jersey is a really good example of an emerging market. New York, another example of a really, emerging market, although New York has its own challenges and struggles, right, within it. But those are great examples of states that are emerging markets. Maybe last year before that, you could think about Montana, right, as one of those emerging markets, or Maine and Vermont as they transition to adult use. Maine and Vermont a little different because they had such an entrenched medical market. A little bit different of a transition there from like emerging because they were already quite established, right? And that was similar to like an Oregon that had a big medical market. So we tend to think of emerging as that first kind of 24 to 36 months from when adult use gets passed.
Okay, great. Yeah, obviously Maryland would be included in that as well. So as we're going on this, so what are some of the trends that you see with emerging markets? Because that's really why we're having this conversation today of like what those first few months look like for wholesale pricing and for brand development and those items.
It's wild, right? I think for the one thing is for the wholesalers, it's the best time they'll ever find in the market, most likely, right? New Jersey, for instance, and some Maryland, others. They get some of the highest prices in the market, right? Why? Well, because there's not enough supply. Like we have clients in New Jersey, they can't even list their inventory on our marketplace or list it live because they will just get bought. And then they can't sell it to any of their current stores, right? There's so much demand that it's, it really outpaces the supply side. And so a lot of these operators, when they come to market, if they're close and one of the first to market, they enjoy this period where they can sell it even if it's not the best quality at a premium price. Right, they get to enjoy the aspect of being, early on. But what we see very quickly, right, as we hit that 24 to 36 month period, the market shifts substantially. Now, not only does that mean you have all of this increased competition, there's more stores to sell to, but more competition on the production side typically. But the other thing that we tend to see is it's not just new entrants coming in, new licenses starting to open their facilities. It's those existing licenses that came in early. Typically the MSOs with a lot of money who got that license first, already had facilities built out, they scale up fast. So what happens is you have those enter plus those, and then you see a market crash pretty quickly.
Let's not fast forward too much. So, I mean, you've seen this time and time again because, the reason why we're having the show is that like it happened out California and Oregon and it's moved west through Michigan. And you almost can even before we get to legacy markets, you could almost even call Massachusetts a legacy market now in some regards. And like not legacy in the, pre-regulated market, but like as in like an established market that's already out there. If you're a brand in an emerging market, if you're a manufacturer, cultivator, you're establishing a brand in an emerging market, what are some of the things that you want to be very mindful of when establishing that?
I mean, I think the best time to invest, unless you have great investors, right, with very deep pockets, which most small businesses don't in cannabis, you're very limited to access to capital, especially now where you're taking on debt that's so expensive, right? The thing that you have to focus on initially when you come to market is, how do I continue to get my cost of production down, right? So if I'm going, I'm making a 80% margin right now, life is great. You don't feel this pressure to go, well, let me go think about automation feeding in my plants or this or that, control environments, various things that you think, now they're investments today to lower costs in the future, right? And I think what we tend to see sometimes is that, when the market's going really well, you don't feel that internal pressure to need to invest in that type of thing. You're just enjoying it and you're just growing. You're just expanding. You're adding more those costs to your business rather than putting that that extra revenue in to say, okay, how can we produce this pound for $100 less, $150 less? So every single cycle, can we improve our margin on that? Can we move our product out quicker through really good marketing or sales programs or systems that help us turn our inventory over faster? Even though our inventory is moving fast, can we move it even faster, right? Can we turn it over even quicker? And I think as businesses really, especially in the emerging markets, you have 2 to 3 years. And it takes a while to really get all that dialed in, right? That's the period you should be thinking of. how do we streamline everything? What systems do we need? Where can we make these investments? Because those investments then are going to pay dividends in the future when the market falls and crashes, right? Because you can survive while everyone else is scrambling then to make those investments. While you already have it dialed and you are able to actually maintain and be in a really successful spot.
Some of those investments are day one, like your facilities, your building, what you're spending on those kind of expenses right there that will come to haunt you. And those are things that are very hard to get out of once you're in those.
Yeah, and understanding costs is hard, right? Like understanding your costs, especially as a small business, are incredibly hard. That's why software providers are there to help you and support you to help create SOPs or best practices and data and systems, right? That's what the providers like us are there for. But on the other side, what they have to think about, in the emerging market as well is start to understand the data, right? We talked about this. There's a lot of historical data now in cannabis, 10 years of legal cannabis transaction data. You can look at Colorado, Oregon, all of it's there.
Where's a great place for our audience to find some of those things? I want to be able to give some actionable insights on this one.
I mean, we release wholesale market data. We've been releasing it for the last 2 years in key markets and key categories. Our competitor LeafLink does. There's Headset, there's BDSA, there's all these sources that you can find it. And some of them are free. Ours is free, right? It's there. And so I think what you have to start to understand as you dial that in is also can we start to forecast what this market's going to look like in 6 months, in 12 months? And I'm not talking 2 years. Markets change sometimes in 30 or 60 days. So you need to create a game plan, a future. Like every 6 months, we need to assess the market. We need to look at historicals in our market, historicals in other markets. We need to look at what the state's releasing from like canopy and licenses and all that to predict what the market might look like. And you have to start making really critical decisions at that juncture of the business. And it seems like, hey, things are good. Why the hell am I spending time on this? That's when you got to spend the time.
That's when you get time on it because you have the time to do it. Well, let's take a little snap back in time then, and let's look at an established market and let's see some of the trends from that, some of the stories from that, and let's get into that a little bit. So let's look at probably the newest member of the established market, I guess, would be Massachusetts.
And a lot of news in Massachusetts recently, right? Not only from the regulatory commission, how disastrous that is, not to go down that road, but it's about consolidation, right? You're seeing stores shut down, you're seeing brands leave the market, you're seeing a lot of various things happen there, right? And I think what we can think of in Massachusetts is followed a very, very similar trend of all those other legacy markets before it, right? And didn't necessarily learn from those things, right? So we are a good example, like a great story, I think, of Massachusetts is, I think 4 years ago now, we were at NECANN, right? Great show. We love that Boston show. It's fantastic. We were there. And we had started to gain quite a bit of presence in the market, right? But what was cool is we had MSO clients, big facilities, all the way down like your first micro cultivation licenses, right? Social equity kind of licenses out there in that market. And what was interesting is they were all following the same pattern. So what I mean by that is, we were out there doing facility tours. So I go and meet with 2 large MSOs, right? Very large, substantial. At that time, probably the largest producers in the state. And what's interesting is they said, we each have about 250,000 square feet of canopy. They were both doubling their capacity because the market was hot. They were making $35,000 to $4,000 a pound. Hell yeah, let's take advantage. This is it. We really are bullish on this market. Let's go capture it. Whatever we need to do and hold it. And so they were doing that. And then I go meet with one of the first micro cultivation licenses, right? Walk in their facility, beautiful facility, small rooms, high quality, right? We go back into the storage and then there's this other part of the facility. They go, we're going to build all this out now and get ready. Things are going well right now. And you know what I told them? Don't do it. She goes, why? I'm killing it right now. I'm making good money. I can pay my investors back quicker. They're good because I just left 2 facilities. They're adding 500,000 square feet of canopy. And that's only 2, let alone the other 100 licenses that are active in the market. And this is the same trap. Oregon, Colorado, California, when things are good, people scaled up. The thing was they didn't realize, we're scaling up, everybody else is scaling up, and new licenses are coming to the market. And it's not like there's more, maybe consumption's going up a little, but it's not going up relative to that, right? You're not seeing a jump in sales of 80%, right? Like traditionally, you're not going to see that at retail. You're going to see incremental, more units are moving here and there because there's just more stores, more access, but it doesn't go like that. Wholesale goes like that, right? That's the difference. And so that's what we've found in all those markets is like you have to be really wary of overproduction and a false demand signal Because the demand signal today isn't going to be the same demand signal in 6 months or 12 months. And so when you think about building out your facility, well, you're at what? 3 to 4 months at best to build out, another 3 or 4 months to get approval. If you're doing little tiny rooms, right? Maybe, right? 6 months, then you got another 3 to 4 months to get approval or whatever the hell you got to do with fire and this. And then you come to market and you're like, oh crap, prices have fallen 25% since then. Our demand has started to shift. We can't get as many doors. We need to hire more sales, market. We need to put the money in other areas to survive or to excel. And that's that challenge, right? Where and I think it's the same with growers when they think about strains they're growing, right? You got 13 weeks till you get it out there. Is that still hot or not? I don't know. That's the challenge, right?
The big takeaway, like we wanted to focus on here is that like that is the trend. Just to underline this bold italics, pink Sharpie, like that has been the trend consistently across the United States as states have, become legal for this, like bar none. Like that is the trend. And that will happen in New York and New Jersey, and it will happen in Maryland and Minnesota. Like it will happen, and just being mindful of that.
That's the nature of free markets, right? Capitalism, this is the nature of the way that we've positioned cannabis within the market, and ultimately U.S. society, society in general is about that, right? And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, right? The only markets where you don't see this happen is limited license markets. And the problem with limited license markets is traditionally they're owned by the MSOs, the corporate cannabis, right? Who, again, whether you think, quality, craft, local, whatever it is, right? It doesn't always align with every member of that state or that society when they go to their form of how they want to consume cannabis or the business they want to support, right? And so sometimes the markets that are the healthiest are the markets where MSOs have kind of owned them. They don't really let other people in, right? And you see several examples of markets like that. But then once it changes, like we see in New Jersey, again, it was an MSO market medical. Now, what we find is everyone wants homegrown Garden State weed. That's what they want, right? They don't want to support, nothing against them. They don't want necessarily the Cresco weed as much, right? They want that local and they want to connect with that local grower. And again, like, hey, these are businesses that support local people, right? But at the end of the day, that's not what they align on. And so I think that's the change too.
I love it. Some pulls from this one. Be wary of overproduction. Keep track of licenses, know where canopy is getting grown, be mindful of, that demand curve is not matching that overproduction curve. And if you're smarter about that from the beginning, you can get out of there from costs. Know your costs. Actually, there's a great episode we did with Tracy Lemaire of Tax CPAs. Just find it in the YouTube channel list. She goes on a deep dive of understanding your costs and how to apply those. It's as far as accounting episodes go, it's actually probably
we love Tracy. She works in our app. She works with a bunch of our clients. She's a big Apex advocate. She's been fundamentally fantastic for a lot of our clients and has been a big advocate of us.
They're great human beings. Great shout out to Tax CPAs. Read the market, be flexible, and know your costs, and like actually have real data to be able to show your costs on those. So now that we're back at present, we've gone take a look back at our established markets and see there. What are some success factors that you like maybe have seen, like top 3 or so, that like are just great takeaways for brands in new markets right now, or even established markets, and maybe how you could right size some things?
Yeah. I mean, if you can avoid the overproduction trap, right? That overproduction, you really focus on your retail stores, right? Optimizing their sell-through, supporting them with marketing, being a partner, not a vendor, a partner, right? The brands that we see are the most successful, right? And I'm not saying that it's consumer brand loyalty. It's a whole nother topic, not anywhere where we really live, right? Like I would love to create more consumer brand loyalty throughout, but that's not necessarily what we do today. The thing is that like, it's the retail brand loyalty, meaning like we can prove our sell-through units are better. We can prove on great margins, right? Lean on the data to help create that connection with that retailer and to prove to them like, hey, never pull my product off your shelf, right? The ones that really invest in that relationship aren't just coming and saying, here's a high-tech product, 30% buy my flower, right? That's great. It's going to move maybe. There's more to that relationship. There's more to that conversation, more to way to be a partner with that retailer. I think the ones that invest in that tend to do really well, right? Because, what you see at the retail side, a lot of purchaser turnover, depending on the market, right? And that purchaser is going to have their own feelings or things, right? You have to establish it and you got to get that foothold at the store, right? knowing your costs, like we talked about, right? Being able to remain competitive on pricing. So when the market falls, you're going to have to react to what the retailer's keystone is. You're going to have to react to what your competitors' prices are, right? And the market in general. And so if you can get tight on your costing, it's going to allow you to come in and be competitive, right? If you're the cost leader, be the cost leader, right? Be the premium. If you can drive that, hell yeah, good for you. Majority of companies aren't in that realm, right? You're going to have to fall in that other area.
No. The majority of you want a really good price per THC value, and you want good quality flower, but people are buying on a molecule right now.
What we see too, and this comes back into a little bit of the trap, the overproduction trap, is do everything trap. And Brian, we're software guys. We can fall into that too. Do everything, right? We get asked to do all that. We see opportunities. Let's go do it, right? Well, it's really hard sometimes. The investment of the time, the personnel, the infrastructure, the marketing, the sales, and then that rollout, right? And so it's really challenging. Sometimes you go, okay, I'm a grower. Okay, I see an emergence of solventless extracts. Let me go do a whole solventless extract line, right? I don't have to get a new license. It can live under my cultivation license because I'm not bringing in, a gas or anything. We're safe. Boom, we can do that, right? Well, but you don't think about, okay, what about packaging? What about not only the cost of packaging, the people to package it, because this is a new product now. Then we got to roll it out. How are we going to sell it? So it's this idea of while you see all these opportunities in the market, you sometimes focus is about what you're not doing as much as about what you are doing. New proliferation. I'm an edible company. Let me go introduce 12 new flavors. Well, why? People love the watermelon, the strawberry, this, and this. They sell great, the peach. Why do you need to go and do all that? And then hope that results in sales or more brand, loyalty or whatever it is. And I think that's that challenge. Yes, for sure. If you have a great merchandise, you have a great product, you have a great team, all that, and you think you can do it and you have the capital behind you, by all means, go do it. Take the risk or take advantage of the opportunity. But I think the other side is, I love the focus thing, right? It's about as much as about what you're not doing as much as you're doing. And this is things we're growers. We love growing. I love producing great weed. Okay, I'm not going to do pre-rolls because I don't want to invest in this. I'm just going to grow. And then ultimately, if I want to do pre-rolls, I'm going to find a co-packing partner, right? They have the machines. They have the infrastructure. They have the staff. I'm not going to make as big of a margin, but I'm going to take on almost no risk as long as they are a good quality control on that side, which I can ultimately have say in some view of, right? And so I think that's a bigger thing is rather than doing it yourselves, go find partners. Rather than doing all your delivery yourself, go find a really good logistics partner. Maybe you do the first 3 drops yourself, build the rapport, bam, hand it to third-party logistics so you're not having to cover that cost, right? Think about Massachusetts, 2 drivers in a vehicle for delivery. Holy hell. Focus on what you do best, where your passion is, right? What get you up every day and you're like, hell yeah, I love this. Do that. Stay on that because your passion, your love, your dedication is going to ultimately help you make it through the challenging times to be successful, right? That's cannabis. We're all here for a reason. We love the plant, right?
Being a bit asset light in regards to when you're expanding out. We do these things very good. We're great at these. We have understood the market. We realize they're in demand and we do it well. So let's keep doing those. And anything that you can leverage out, I know you're going to give up margin on this, but it's a lot less expensive than getting it over your skis, if I'm understanding you saying that correctly.
Yeah, I want to do cartridges. Well, let me go find a white label cartridge line that will co-brand the cartridges that they're selling through with mine as well. So I'm getting farm notoriety. I'm getting brand notoriety. They can now connect that cart to this flower, that pre-roll that I produce, right? But I'm not necessarily having to eat all that. I'm just sharing in some of the revenue there. I'm getting a cut on the trim or the sell-through or whatever it is. I think that's exactly right. It's find ways to expand your brand, right? Expand your market share, but do it really in the right, really intelligently, right? Think out of the box, right? Create strategic partnerships, right? Find the right people who align with you and see if you can build something together and share rather than having to take the full burden yourself, which is so hard for small businesses, which 90% of all licenses are small businesses, right? We're all figuring it out as we go.
Be smart, be prudent, and when it makes sense to be prudent, get informed. Make sure that you are informed of what is going on and growing and how the market dynamics are going to look today, but also 6 months, a year from today. Know your costing. Call Tracy over at Tax CPAs, not to give her another plug on this one, but she's great at what she does. Or at least call your accountant, at the very least, if it's not Tracy and Charlotte over there. And then also just strategically expand, with partners. There are co-packers around, there are delivery partners around. You're going to give up some margin, but it's a lot cheaper than getting over your skis on this. And you can grow into that when it makes sense, when inevitably the market is going to retract in some way, and allows you to respond to market pricing changes. If your costs are high, you can't go any lower without going out of business. And that's a problem.
One of the best things I did in my business was I brought on like a really good VP of finance, right? Like really freaking good, right? Not cheap, but really good. And then what it helped me do is understand the modeling and the forecasting, adjustment of revenue channels, and making sure we're doing it the right way, adjusting our model every 30 days, right? Literally every 30 days we sit down and redo it. A cannabis company should be doing the same, right? You don't have to bring it all full in-house. There are tons of third parties. Yeah, you need to know the data. You need to have really tight books. You need to have really tight costing. You need to understand all these components so you can actually make an informed decision. The problem is in cannabis, we're all really busy. Owners are trying to do all these various things, all these different pieces. They're taxed out, right? And then they're just sometimes working a little bit of data and gut. And that's okay sometimes, right? You might make the right decision, but sometimes you make that critical wrong decision based on false data or this inaccuracy. It can really create hemorrhage, right? Within your balance sheet, within your business. So I think don't be afraid to and that sucks sometimes, I know I got to spend on this thing when I don't really feel like I need to right now because things are good. That's the time again, just like thinking about cost of production, think about how do we know our data better? How can we find someone to help us understand it and dial our systems in so that when I can sit here and I have an easy dashboard that I can look at that allows me to know what I need to be doing, right? That's an investment in infrastructure. And again, there's systems that sometimes do that, but you're going to need someone on the back end much smarter than I am to help you with that, right? And much smarter than my team is on the tech side, right? You need a bean counter, right? You need someone who's the zeros and ones. They get it. They know it. That's not me, on that side, but yeah.
I think that's a good summary of a lot of the biggest things that are going on here. And just a reminder, any value you've gotten from this show, give us a like and give us a comment. John will respond to these. I will make sure he sees them. They're on the YouTube channel. So give us a like, give us a subscribe. That really helps the show. We really try to bring, good educational, non-sponsored content to the show. As a final bonus for this, John, you guys are, a wholesale marketplace. I know we're last quarter of 2024 is upon us. A little bit of timely information after our timeless information right there. What are we looking at, into next year, as current trends, either in a specific geography or just in general as the market, as the industry matures and consumer tastes are maturing as well. What is some of the trends late 2024, early 2025?
I'm keeping my eye on the hemp stuff. I think it's really interesting about are the markets going to come together? How much are they going to separate, right? You saw Gavin Newsom's recent announcement. I think just that in itself is really intriguing and really interesting to follow because they directly impact one or the other, whether beneficial or not, right? And so I think that's just in general market trends. It's what's going to happen with intoxicating hemp and cannabis, right? What's that going to look like? Are they going to remain, and I think that just is going to have big ripples, over the next several years. So I think that when I think about cannabis itself, trends that we see and that I'm really excited about, we were kind of talking about before, is the move to solventless extracts. You see it everywhere, right? Rosin, right? Rosin is the thing, right? That you're seeing a higher price point, but dabbers are going to get, the clean. I think you just see a huge move to solventless extracts. It's not just the dab form, it's edibles infused with rosin, right? Things like that. So you're starting to see that because it's more full spectrum, it's cleaner, et cetera.
I've started to see them emerge here in New Jersey. It wasn't here until recently, but it's starting to come around.
And you're seeing it, and they're winning all the awards, right? They're getting all of that. So I think rosin, that kind of solventless, is a really interesting thing. I wouldn't say necessarily water hash or bubble hash or that, or it's really, rosin.
Is that more of a niche market for people who are going after that?
Yeah, I think it's much more niche. I love bubble hash personally, but yeah, I don't, I'm not using it. I'm not smoking infused pre-roll unless it's bubble hash. I don't really like oil in it, right? So that's just me. I think the other thing that we've seen, which I love, and talking more to my mom, or elderly or other, it's the emergence of full spectrum edibles. Not necessarily full, but we're seeing ratios now where before it was THC, CBD. Right now you're coming in saying, okay, here's a sleep one with CBN. Here's the CBG, here's all these others. So you're starting to see a proliferation of minor cannabinoids in edibles. And I think people really, a new demographic being attracted, especially for sleep. My mom loves her sleep gummies, right? Tracks her sleep, she loves them, right? lot of older people. I could use a sleep gummy probably a couple nights a week too, tell you the truth. But I think that's the emergence we see is this idea. And I think that will come back into other products eventually. We'll start with edibles. And I think we're going to start to see that trend back into other types of products.
Like a beverage and a few other things that are out there. Yeah.
Yeah. And the form and factors, if we're talking, is like, what's cool, what I love is that they're still cartridges. They're still edibles, but they're different, right? They're made with all natural ingredients. They're made with other cannabinoids, right? They're different. And I love that evolution and maturation of the products themselves.
And for any new users watching, like the effects are aids in sleep, aids in energy, aids in focus, again, not FDA approved or resolved or tested, but like very anecdotally, from a large set of consumer, surveyed, these things help in those areas. So I'm glad for that because I personally, I do enjoy those, but it's also a more maturing market that it's not just selling on one THC anymore, or CBD. You're adding other parts of the plant to it to be able to get the effects that you want.
And I don't think there's a direct correlation to the idea of like when you go to the bar, you don't ask for like a shot of Everclear, right? You're okay with that 4% beer, that 5% seltzer, or whatever the hell it is, right? Like you don't need the strongest. And I think ultimately we'll see, again, this kind of gradual, especially as more consumers come in, the non-legacy consumers, right? For me, I'm like, yeah, but I love a 14% as much as a 30% if it has the terpenes, right? And the quality doesn't bother me at all, right? So I think that you'll see that maturation happen, and then we'll start to see products or brands respond accordingly.
Where, I know this is our final point on the show on this one, but obviously you guys, Apex Trading offers an immense amount of information for free, which is great to their customers as a marketplace offering. Where can customers go and find that? And, maybe some other market sources for audiences to take on this for their own, research.
Yeah, so if you roll up to apextrading.com, you could submit like a demo request or anything. As long as you're in our CRM, flagged as an operator, right? You will get our monthly snapshots, right? And so everyone gets them. All you got to do essentially is reach out to us, make sure we get you into our log, and you're going to get them, right? And so it's a really simple way. They come out monthly in a newsletter. Where you can go in and it has updates of product as well as those snapshots. So that's a great place, obviously. And then, we mentioned partner, other providers out there that have it as well.
Even competitors and partners that are out there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's, I don't have any problem saying, hey, LeafLink has data out there too. You can go get it. You should, right? We're not the one all be all of the market as much as we want to be. And so you as an operator, you need to make sure that you're looking at all data sources and trying to feed those in to make the right decisions.
Yeah, LeafLink's another great resource, Headset as well. Like these are all great, large scale, large data set, sources for this data. So, John, thank you for coming on the show. And you've seen this. You guys have been around for a number of years, and you've seen markets evolved. And you guys are based in Oregon and actually all over the country. But as states get legal, it is a playbook for how operators and brands emerge, overproduce, and then there's a thinning that comes on. So if you're a new operator in this industry, some really great, valuable information. Thanks for sharing the timeline of all this, and just be wary of that playbook and play it the right way and use that to your advantage because you are, a loyal viewer of How to Flourish in Cannabis. Thanks, John. I really appreciate having you on. It's been great.
Brian, I appreciate it, man. It's been a pleasure.